Hello, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Got a couple people here. I'm Callie from Knitswag. We're here to talk about number knitting, vintage knitting, all things modular knitting. It's going to be a fun night. We've got we have some great things in store. So I wanted to first off, I feel like it's Christmas time, and the other day it was like in the 20s here, and my yard froze, which is fine. And we're having a huge rainstorm right now. It's been in the 40s or 50s today. It's going to get cold tonight. But here I am, I'm in a tank top. It feels a little weird being that we have, Christmas decor downstairs and like all the neighborhood is covered in Christmas lights. Well, except for my house. But Santa's workshop has been very busy, so we have not decorated really anything to speak of. Anyway, I finished my sweater, and so I thought, even though it's wintertime outside, we turned up the heat enough for me to actually wear this nifty little tank top, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so if you're new here, and we might get some new people from time to time. Every time we get together, we talk about the original modular knitting book by Virginia Woods Bellamy and go into some of the history of her method and her life and her writings and her music, and I just keep finding more and more, and it's amazing. So I've been doing this show for like a year now. I think it was in January of last year, and I keep thinking I'm going to run out of stuff to say and interesting things about Virginia. Oh no. I just keep finding more. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I have some goodies to share with you today. And my printer wouldn't work, so all of my my notes are in the phone today. So if you see me referring to my phone a lot, that's why, because my notes are here. Hey, Mishibi, welcome. Yeah, last gathering of the year. It is because it's almost Christmas, and I'm not going to be here for the next couple of weeks. So we'll pick it up after the first of the year, when everyone is like, I don't know if you'll be recovered, but like, hopefully have some downtime, because I know that the month leading up to Christmas, everyone is so busy and everyone is so exhausted and just trying to make things magical and get the gifts and shop for the gifts and wrap the gifts and make the food, and it's just like, it'll wear you down. Yeah. So after tonight, we'll take a couple weeks off and then pick it up again after the first of the year. Anyway, so I thought I would show you one of the. Hold on one sec. So in the spirit of Christmas, my husband and I were at the farmers market maybe last weekend, and we saw the Christmas trees, and they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're incredible. And at one of the Christmas tree stands, like within the farmers market in Raleigh, there was this vintage stocking. It's humongous, and it's got jingle bells on it. Isn't this fun? So anyway, I got this. Hey, Karmon! I got this stocking, and it was $10. I mean, I probably would have got it even if it was like $25. And at first I thought it was hand knit, and it's not, but that's okay. But it's amazing, and I thought it was because it was vintage. So let me show you that. So take all this junk off. Okay, so here's this awesome Christmas stocking that I got. And it's very obviously let's do this one a little closer. It's obviously not hand knit, it's machine knit. But they did a pretty good job with it. They did some different things here with the tension, which is interesting, and I haven't figured out what kind of a stitch this is, because every other stitch is like extra puffy, and I really don't know how that's accomplished. It's almost like they use two different yarns to achieve that effect. Yeah, I think so. There's like two different yarns. Every other stitch is worked in like a thin yarn, and then the next one is a thick yarn, which is interesting. I've never seen that before. I thought it was ribbing at first glance, but now that I look at it, it appears to just be stockinette. But every other stitch is a thicker yarn, which is really different. Okay, so The reason I thought this was handmade was because these jingle bells are, so I thought somebody, I assumed like back in the 70s, had bought this, and then they did duplicate stitch for the letters. That's what it seems like to me, because this very much looks handmade, and let's see about the inside. Yeah, it's obviously duplicate stitch, and so that part was done by hand. And so I assumed it was, oh, and it's got this fun little pom-pom. It's got two of them. There we go. I assumed it was hand, like, I assumed this part, and this part was hand done. And what's interesting about this is it's got, this is like, I don't know, 5.5 stitches to the inch or so, but these big green stitches, they're like two, each one of them like takes over 2 of the red stitches. And so I've never seen a duplicate stitch done like that before, with like thicker yarn and, you know, using more stitches. That's unusual. And I love these jingle bells. This is awesome. I thought this was from the 70s because this has like a kind of like a cream colored. It's cream colored. I thought it was handmade, and you know, I was wrong on both accounts. It's not from the 70s, and it's not handmade. I mean, it's hand appliqué, but it's not handmade. So let me show you why I don't think it's from, oh, I know it's not from the 70s. So inside here is a tag, and it says copyright 1986. Well, I don't know who's, like, what's it copyrighted, but anyway, it says, I don't know if you can see that. You can trust me though. Copyright 1986, made in Taiwan, exclusively for Department 56. NOEL, registered trademark, ornamentation use only. like they're worried that somebody would put this on their foot. I don't know. Like, wow, it's a Christmas stocking of, like, of course it's ornamental. But anyway, so it's 1986, and when I saw that tag, I thought that was interesting, you know, Taiwan, because when I used to get a lot of Christmas ornaments when I was a kid, and you know, I'd make a lot of Christmas ornaments, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you, that my mom, she, every year when we would like, you know, we decorate the tree, and then at the end of the year we take down all the Christmas ornaments and we put them back in the box. But before we were allowed to put them in the box, we would have to cross-check them against the Christmas ornament list. And she put together a whole spreadsheet. And keep in mind, this was like 1984, and the first one was handwritten, but then she upgraded and she put it on Commodore, on like the 5.5, 8.5 floppies, or like the, you know, the big floppies that were like really floppy, on our Commodore 64 computer. And so it was on a disc. That was very fancy. But so we'd print this out on the dot matrix printer. Brrr, brrr. How many of you are old enough to remember those? I'm guessing all of you. So we'd print it out on the dot matrix printer, and it had the description of the ornament, and it had the who it was from, and what year it was. And my sister had a list, and I had a list. And so every year when we would take the ornaments off the tree, it was like a tag team effort. Like, she had her pile of ornaments and I had my pile of ornaments, and they were everything from like stuff that we made, the paper plate, you know, things that we made in preschool, all the way up to, like, you know, really fancy ornaments that we got at the mall, and all the ones, you know, the handmade ones from grandma, like everything. And so we would cross-check all this stuff. And so I have spent probably more time in my life, like, analyzing Christmas ornaments probably than most people. So I remember some of those Christmas ornaments said made in Taiwan, the ones from the 70s and the ones from the 80s. And I don't know what happened in, like, you know, Asian manufacturing in the 80s, but at some point things stopped being made in Taiwan and imported into the US, and they became made in China. So the fact, I mean, it obviously must have been sometime around 1986 or maybe a little bit after, because this stocking was made in Taiwan, and I'm sure there's lots of them nowadays that are made in China, but this is made in Taiwan. Anyway, I think I need to do a little bit of repair work on it. Like, I don't think it's wool. Well, it might be, but we got some like loose threads here that I kind of need to deal with. So I'll do that at some point, probably before I put this thing away for the year. My mom, I love databases. I have databases for everything. I remember the first time I learned about the possibility of a database, like beyond a spreadsheet, because a spreadsheet, like you can't visualize things in a spreadsheet, it's just rows and columns. But with a relational database, you can have layout and you can cross-reference things, and it's love databases. I've lost track of how many databases I have. I love them. Yeah, so I actually have on my blog, I wrote a whole article. This was when I was doing like graphic designer blog stuff. I wrote a whole article all about the database or the Christmas ornament list. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll show it to you, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Let's see. It's fun because it's got pictures of a lot of my family Christmas ornaments, and I still have them. I don't do much with decorating just because I get busy at the beginning of the year. Here it is. Let me show you. Okay, so this is it. It's a story about Mom. It's got clothespin angels, and like I didn't put all of them up here because I've got like 100 of these things, but it's there's a lot of memories in there. So I really love the details about Christmas ornaments, and the time and place that they were made and what they represent, because it says not just about like who made them, but like what was common at the time, and like what was popular at the time, and like manufacturing around the world, and like all kinds of fun stuff that you can learn by looking at Christmas ornaments. Right? Isn't that how everyone looks at Christmas ornaments? No? Just me? Oh dear. Merry Christmas, everyone. All right. Okay. So since we're talking about Christmas, I'm going to bring out Virginia's book of poetry again. It's called "And the Evening and the Morning." Here we go. There we go. And the evening and the morning. And there's a poem in here that Virginia wrote about Christmas. She had, it seems to me that the poems that were compiled in this book were sort of like, not entirely chronologically throughout the year, but like the ones toward like the end of the year, like having to deal with November and December and Christmas and the holidays, they're sort of toward the end, and the one more of like about springtime and Easter and that sort of thing, they're more at the beginning. Anyway, it's the arrangement of these is lovely. So I'm going to read this poem from Virginia. This is called "Miracle." At Christmas, Jesus comes again, through drifting time and heavy pain, through bitter hate and driving woe, the infant Jesus comes below. And to his mother, Mary lifts his living eyes once more, and leans to see the golden gifts upon an earthen floor, and wonders at a star that drifts beyond the stable door. Peace and goodwill to everyone, for Mary holds again her son. Once more upon his mother's arm, the little child of God is warm. And has she lifted her son down from where they nailed him fast, and taken away the cruel crown, and told him death was past, and wrapped his wounds with her gown, and given him drink at last? Lord Jesus from Gethsemane is now a baby on her knee, and Mary's heart that broke upon a distant hill beholds her son. At Christmas time he comes again, the little child that died. His mother bends above his pain and heals his riven side, and sees him in a manger lain who once was crucified. Thank you, Virginia. That is beautiful. All right, we have probably about another 140 poems of Virginia's to explore in this book together. But that was the the Christmas themed one. All right, so I was looking around. As you know, I like to do the searches on Wikipedia. Let's see. No, the archive. It's the archive, archive.org. There we go. So I do searches for Virginia. Virginia Woods Bellamy, Virginia Woods McCall, hyphenated, not hyphenated, all the different things that relate to Virginia. And I found something interesting recently in my notes. I found she was listed in an anthology. I think it was from either the 20s or the 40s, but she was listed in an anthology of poetry, and it said the different works that she had done, some of the places that she was published, and it listed that she had a pen name. She wrote by a different name, which is totally wild. Let me grab that for us. I had it up and now it's gone. There we go. Okay, so in this anthology, her pen name is listed as Ibby Hall, and I've never heard of anyone named Ibby Hall before. And in the web browser, it kept trying to correct it to Abby Hall. There's lots of people named Abby, but apparently there's only like 3 people in American history named Ibby, and only 2 of them were real. One of them was a pen name. It was Virginia's pen name. And so I did a search in the archive for the name Ibby Hall, and you guys, oh my gosh, there is 192 results. She wrote, I don't know how often these things were published. I think it was pretty often for a number of years, maybe every week or something. So what this magazine was, I think this was published in like 1929-ish into the 30s at some point. And her husband, Francis, I believe was the editor of the Outlook magazine. And Virginia had all these poems published in there under her pen name. And so that's why I never found them before, because her name, Virginia, does not appear in any of these articles. And so I think it was, I don't know if it was in here or in this poetry book, or where it was that I read that she had for years done a series of articles in a periodical or magazine or something, and I thought it was called Lessons from Life, and I thought it was called Parade Magazine. Now I don't know how many of you, like if you're in the US, probably in the 70s and 80s, every Sunday in the back of the newspaper, like in the throwaway section, there was something called Parade Magazine. And as a kid in the 80s, it always seemed really dated to me. Like, why do they keep publishing this? It's just junk. Like, do people even read it? And what I had thought was, I thought I had read somewhere that Virginia wrote articles for Parade Magazine. I have not been able to verify that. However, I did find something that matches the description of like what she was doing, except for the name of the magazine is different. So this one is called The Outlook, and it's like a periodical sort of a thing. They do some commentary about political events, and they've got some fiction. They've got all kinds of stories, like short stories, trends of events. It's interesting. They've got, because when you read this, you can see like what the political events were of the day, and like who the politicians were, and like 100 years ago they were complaining about the people in Washington and how they're doing a horrible job, and overspending, and like they hated their policies. Like, well, nothing has changed. Like that's the same thing people are complaining about now. Just, we have a different news media, but that was a lot of the content of this magazine. But Virginia had, it seems like probably just about every issue. I mean, I haven't verified, but like hundreds of issues, she had a short story in there. And let me take you through one of them. Let's see, it's called From the Life. And there's 12 instances of Ibby Hall. It does 12 instances of both of the words. So if I just search for the word Ibby, it's probably going to only come up twice. Yeah. It's called From the Life. This was the title of her article that she would write all the time. And I've read, I don't know, probably a dozen of them, and they're very interesting. It seemed to me like she had kind of a short, like a pretty limited page range or word count, because sometimes it's like this, tragic story. It's, got very suspenseful, and then it's like a cliffhanger. Like, the woman saved her husband from, offing himself by, from jumping out of a window, and then she just like walks away, and that's the end. And it's just like, it's unusual. It's very unusual, but it's very insightful in the topics that she chooses about, sacrifice and life and death, and being poor versus being rich, and assuming certain things about people based on the way they are dressed, and finding out you're totally wrong, and just like it's very insightful. And so if you're interested in reading some more of Virginia's work, I would encourage you to check out the link below to it's the link below is for searching her name, Ibby Hall, in the web archive, and that'll take you to all of these articles. There are some at the end. Apparently there's a woman in Indianapolis who is named Ibby Hall, and there's someone else, some other author named Ibby Hall, who wrote short stories all about cats, which is not Virginia, different Ibby Hall. But anyway, check those out. That was really interesting to find not just like a handful of poems, but like years and years of writing. It's incredible. Okay, so we have, I've talked recently about, I want to make number knitting accessible and available to people even that like are of limited funds, because I understand that, quite a bit. So I've said that if you knit three number knitting patterns from the book, or as like part of our knit-alongs, you earn yourself a free copy of Number Knitting. And I am happy to say, for the first time ever, we have someone who has taken advantage of that opportunity. Her name is Karmon. Yay, Karmon! Yay, Karmon! So she knit, let me show you her Instagram. There we go. Okay, so this is Karmon's Instagram, and you guys, this has been like in the last, I don't know, week and a half, whenever her Instagram started. So this was the first post, 1 week. This was 1 week ago. December 6th. Well, like a week and a half. So this is called the square scarf. And in case you're curious, that is, let me show you where that is in the book. I think it might be called Shaded Kerchief. There is like at least 3 or 4 different projects in the book called square scarf, or shaded scarf, or shaded kerchief, or shaded square. Like there's a number of instances, and so it gets a little confusing trying to find it. But like if you go on the very front cover, I know it's a little hard to see, but this this sweatery thing that the model has on, this is actually for like 4 rectangles, and it is this thing. I mean, this is a different gauge, but it's the same thing. So let me show you what the chart looks like for that. And I apologize that I don't know what it's called. Virginia's naming conventions was like a little bit not super descriptive. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. I think that's it. Nope, that's gloves. And of course I can't find it. That's one of the joys of being alive, because, oh, hey, there it is. Okay, so this is what kerchief on 4 squares. Of course. Oh dear. So this is what the first one that she made, and it's just 4 squares, you know, knit sort of like in a Basketweave pattern at opposing angles. That was her first one that Karmon made. Now the second one that she did was, this was mulberry bush. I like this one a lot because it looks very much like a sunflower to me. Yeah, so let me show you that in the book. That one is called mulberry bush. There we go. And so the example in the book had not just 2 rows, but it had, I guess, like 5 rows, 5 concentric things. Yeah, and so Karmon did a small version of that, and that, to me, that counts. That counts as one. Whoop. Where was it? Hold on. Okay. All right, next one. The next one that she did, this one is called, what is this called? I think this is called the Wall of Troy scarf. Yeah, I think so. This one is interesting because it's not actually charted in the book. It's Wall of Troy. There we go. It's shown in the book, and again with name credit, because, you know, Virginia loved her friends. This was designed as a Christmas gift for her nephew. The Wall of Troy muffler was knitted by Florence Simons of ELIOT, Maine. And apparently at some point in time I drew the chart and I showed it on the show. And Karmon took a screenshot of the chart that I made and knit the scarf from it, which is, that's a lot. That's good. That's good. That shows like real enthusiasm. Excellent. What else did she make? So she only needed to do 3 to get a free copy, but she kept going. It's awesome. Okay, the next one that she did, this was the hat of straw yarn from Number Knitting, and I had showed this a couple of times. I think Bub made one of these, and I had the thing with this pattern is the numbers in the book are wrong, or the gauge in the book is wrong, because if you look at the I think it's called Bag and Hat of straw yarn. If you look at the gauge, in the book, okay, it's on page 202. It says you should get 6 stitches to the inch. But if you knit this at 6 stitches to the inch, you get a hat that is approximately this big. It's so small. It's so small. The number of stitches is correct. I think if you knit it at like 4 stitches to the inch, or like 4.5 stitches to the inch, and use the numbers in the chart here, then you get an adult size hat and it works fine. But okay, so that was the second, no, that was the 4th or 5th thing that Karmon made. And this is only since the beginning of December, y'all. That's crazy. All right, then she, I'm gonna skip the next one, and I'll come back to it. So then she sent me this. This is called, I think, the Shaded Kerchief. And in the book, Virginia says to do it in 4 shades of blue, but Karmon did it in like 4 variegated shades. And so you knit these divided squares, and then you pick up from the rising edge of each one, and then you knit a center triangle. It's a simple pattern. It's lovely. It turned out great. Good job, Karmon. Okay, and the last thing that I have seen so far is Karmon knit this hat and it's 2 divided squares, but it's also got a strip kind of in the back, and it's got a strip around. So like if you were to take a 2 squares and put them together, it's not quite enough to wrap around a head. You need just a little bit more. So I'm gonna draw out a chart of what Karmon did. So it occurred to me, I don't think that I've ever actually shown you guys how I draw my charts. And like, I know that in the book, Virginia talks about how to use the graph paper, with the, calculating your box number and what the box number means and all that. But I thought, this would be a good opportunity to like go into depth a little bit more about that, because not everybody might be familiar with it. Like some people that are new to number knitting, like the whole idea of this is like very intimidating, and it shouldn't be. It's really quite simple. So yeah, so let's talk about that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up my screen here. This is Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to make sure I have my settings right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I've got this graph paper here, and I have it set so that when I draw a square, it's going to like snap to the grid. And so it's always going to be like nice and snappy, I guess. So anyway, she started with, I think it was 28, her divided squares were 28 stitches. And so that 28 is divisible by 7 and divisible by 4. And so I think I'm going to choose, let me look at her picture again real quick. She did how many ridges? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like about 7 ridges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll call it 8. Okay, so we're going to make our box number equals 4 for, our own personal reference. Bold. All right. Nope. Well, it wants to snap to the grid, so I'll just leave it. Okay, so what the box number means is that every box on this graph paper equals 4 stitches. And so what I'm going to do, if I want to get have a 28 by 28 divided square, I need I need a box that is 7 by 7. So there's 7 stitches, that's 14, so on and so forth. So I want this to be 7. There's 5, 6, 7 tall by 7 wide. So 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and now I'm going to draw a diagonal line across here, and I have, so that's like the mitered part. And I have set up some graphic styles. There we go. Some styles to kind of indicate what the different things on the chart are. All right, so now I'm going to draw in my garter stitch lines. And that just helps, like, it's a better way of charting than just like the black and white that Virginia used in the book, because it's easier to see that these are garter stitch because they're wavy and they're a different color. Because sometimes she used the black lines to indicate not just the direction of the ridges, but like to indicate colors, which is confusing. So if you had like something that was red and something that was blue, like maybe the red one would have thicker lines, for the ridges, and the blue one would have lighter lines. And it was confusing because it was black and white. Anyway, I'm doing it this way because it's better. No offense, Virginia. We love you. All right, so those are the garter stitch ridges. And so what she did is she made 2 of these. So I'm gonna duplicate this, scoot it over, and then flip it. Reflect, There we go. And then she also had, I think, I'm just going to say it was probably about 8 ridges here. So that goes, what graphic style is that? Whoops. What is this? No graphic style. Great. All right. All right, so now I'm going to add another ridge here. And I will make that garter stitch ridge. So this is like the body of the hat. And then she also added another one of these kind of like down here, sort of like for the band of the hat. Is that what it's called? Band, cuff? I don't know. And aha, I have a setting wrong. Where is it? Turn that off. Okay. All right. And then, so what she did, she knit her, you know, did I do that right? Let's check. Yeah, they point down toward the center. Yeah, so she knit, oh no, I have these wrong. Let's rotate these. Rotate all of this. Yeah, hers. Oh no, I had it right the first time. No. Ha. Oh dear. Here's what she did. Yeah. This one is going down and the other one is going up. Yeah, so she would have cast on here, worked her divided square, and then, you know, cast on some more stitches, and then picked up from here, and then work her divided square, and then picked up here, knit another, you know, band, and then picked up, and then bound off, and then picked up here and worked down. And then what she did is she you know, break the yarn, and then cinched through, you know, just draw in all of these at the top to kind of cinch it in like a beanie. Yeah, so this is Karmon's hat. Way to go, Karmon. Thanks for letting us see that and break it down and see how it was created. That's a fun hat. I think I might make one. Yeah. So that's kind of the same idea that we use for the adventurous designs. Adventurous. Okay, it's on page 249. So there's a whole bunch of designs in the back that Virginia had done, and probably some of her students too, that that came up with these things. And if you're curious about how to chart your own stuff, you should look at this. Oh, she talks about Aunt Polly. Oh yes, Aunt Polly. That's who the book was dedicated to. My Aunt Polly, my favorite Aunt Polly, Laura Hall Woods. Oh, my sweater was getting caught on my antique desk. I'm going to have to read that again about Aunt Polly. Anyhow, there's a whole section here in the book all about, you know, how to use the graph paper and the rules of number knitting and so forth. Oh, it goes on for, I don't know, quite a while, several pages. That's pretty great. And then she's got some exercises here in the back about how to, you know, different ways that you can assemble your squares. And once we go a bit further, she has some original designs. And so you can, I mean, once you get comfortable with it, you can easily just see how these are made, because she always uses the same 7 shapes, except for the adapted units. But she's going to use the squares, the triangles, the divided triangles, divided squares, and you can clearly see how these are made. Like this is a divided square, that's a divided square, so on and so forth. Yeah. Oh, okay, real quick. See, this is called sleeveless shirt, I think. It looks a lot to me like the Greenwich shirt in the book. And I made that this summer, and it seems a little silly to be wearing it at Christmas time. But anyway, this is the Greenwich shirt, which looks a lot like the sleeveless shirt. And you know, I kind of think they're the same shirt. So I don't know why in one place it's called sleeveless shirt and one place it's called Greenwich shirt. I can only speculate. Maybe someday I'll get to meet Virginia in heaven and ask her. I don't know. Yeah, so this is the Greenwich shirt that I made. And in the original book, it called for having it open. Like the only place it was supposed to be was like connected was here. And so like from here all the way up was supposed to be open. Which, you know, I guess it would work for some people, but yeah, so I added seams. I added seams on mine, and it seems like it might want to fall down just a touch, not enough that I'd bother with it. Like it's fine. This yarn is a cotton blend of some sort, and so it's got a little grip to it, but it's the same front and back. And in the original book, it called for, let me find it real quick, Greenwich shirt. There it is. It's on page 224. Yeah, that is the same. That's the same, is it not? I think that's the same. No. Because this one says it was knitted by Connie Small in ELIOT, Maine. I don't know. Maybe Connie, maybe Virgin came up with the design and then Connie came up with the design and then her other friend that she mentions in the other section like came up with it independently, and so she just like tossed hers in at the end because they look the same to me. I don't know. But anyway, this is the Greenwich shirt, and it's basically just two chevrons, or three chevrons on different sizes of needles. Now what she does here, I should have followed her instructions, because she says you make the front and the back the same, and you start with a divided, I guess this is a double wing, and then another double wing, and then here on the sides you knit triangles. And I was like, well, shoot, I could just save myself some seaming and knit a divided triangle here, and pick up from both the front and the back. Like, that would be fine. And you know, I should not second guess her. I mean, I guess it's good because I'm learning, but what happened is that the seam doesn't look the same. So I got this nice seam here, and then I get there and it's like, it doesn't match at all. And maybe no one else is going to notice, but I notice, and it seems a little wonky. So if you ever knit the Greenwich shirt, do it like Virginia says, because she knew more than me, apparently. Yeah. Oh, when will I stop second guessing her? I don't know. All right, so I thought I'd show you a few things that I have finished. My new Christmas mug. I don't think I've showed you guys this one before. It's knitted snowflakes. So I think that I had showed you the kind of like a mock Entrelac hat that I had made. Oh, Stephanie is knitting an off-white version of that. I would love to see that. I think I'm going to knit more in different colors. I've got 2 Hampton shirts underway right now. So like, even though I've knit the pattern before, it's so much fun and they fit so great, I'm just going to like, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so this mock Entrelac hat that I made, this isn't actually Entrelac, or is it Interlac? I really don't know how to pronounce it. If you know, do tell, because I don't know. So I just started with these squares. I knit one and then I bind off, and then I pick up and I knit another one, so on and so forth, all the way around. I think I made the squares slightly smaller as I got toward the top. And for the top, the the top row was like these little triangles. There's no written instructions for this. I don't have a pattern for it. I just kind of made it up as I went. And yeah. And then I picked up along the edge here, and I knit in a 1x1 rib until it was long enough to attach, like to fold and attach here. And then I added a pom-pom. I kind of wish it was just a tad longer, because I wore this out on a walk the other day, and as I was walking, it just went like, like I think this would fit probably a junior high school girl just a little bit better than me, but that's all right. It's fun. So this is the first one that I finished. And I also have this hat. So this is the Roundabout hat, and we've been doing this as our knit along for December. And if you haven't done one of our knit alongs yet, join us, because not many people do. How many people do we have here? 7. So the people that participate in our knit alongs, there's not very many of them, and so the chance that you can win a prize is very, very high. So anyway, this is our hat for this quarter. Oh, nope. There we go. Okay, and so the way it works is that you cast on, well, first of all, all right, Kelly, back up. The link is in the description. It's a free pattern. I haven't tech edited it, and apparently I didn't even spell check it, but it's, it's free, and it's good until December 31st, I think is when it like expires. So get yourself a copy of it between now and then. And the way that this is, it works on any size head, any size yarn, any gauge that you want, whatever. You can make a hat like this in this style. And so the way that it works is you take your head measurement, I believe you take your head measurement, divide by 6, and then times that by your number of stitches per inches. That number that you'll get is how many stitches that you need to cast on for each of these 6 ridges. On this one, I used, I think, number 6 or 7 US needles, cast on 19. So 19 times 19 times 6. So I cast on 19 times 6 all the way around. Work a few rows. I think I did 6 ridges of garter stitch, maybe about 6 or 7 rows of stockinette, and repeat that. Now normally I would stop right about here and like graft the 2 sections together, but I had just a little bit of yarn that I wanted to use up, and what else am I going to use this yarn for? And I was like, I'll just keep going, see what happens. And I did. So what happened is that it made it a little bit longer. So instead of the grafting taking place in this like stockinette area, it actually had to take place up here in the garter stitch area, which is fine. It's fine. So after you graft it together, you have to put it on double pointed needles for that. That's the only time you'll use double pointed needles. All the rest of this is circular, which is lovely. After you've grafted it, you're gonna pick up some stitches here, and then work short rows of 1x1 ribbing. I didn't even change needle sizes. It has this interesting curve here, which I kind of dig. And so the first time I put this thing on, because this is kind of a big hat, and I put it on and I was like, well, that's a little too big. Like, it could be slouchy, but it's like usually slouchy hats are kind of thinner fabric, so they're more slouchyable, if that makes sense. But then I remember a hat I made for my father a couple years ago, and when he put it on, he wore it like a fisherman. I don't know if that makes sense. The first thing he did, he put the hat on, and normally you'd wear a hat like, like this, and so it's like here. What he did is he took it and he folded it up, and so it sat more like so the brim was bigger, and so it sat more like high on his head, and it exposed his ears. And so I thought, well, maybe that's how I'll wear this hat, is just rolled up. So it's sort of like a brim, but it's kind of round. Anyway, that's what I finished this week. yeah. Um, the snowflake tumbler, you know, I meant to put that online on my store. I did not get that far, but I can. I will put it up. And we have other colors available, so I will put it up for you, and I will make it available. We have two that are run right now. Whoa! That was my microphone. We have this, we have one in red, which is this one, but we also have it like reversed, and so like it in light blue, so it's like more engraved at the bottom, and as you get toward the top, it's more light blue as opposed to more engraved. So anyway, these are fun. I will put it up in the shop though, I promise. I promise, with all the, color combinations and all that. Okay, so I was, as you know, I do research on Virginia and all the places that she's lived because, I'm obsessed. And so the place that she lived when she was developing like the correspondence course for number knitting and, doing Holliver Publishing into like Women's Home Companion and McCall's Needlework, and when she published, I believe even when she published number knitting, she was living in ELIOT, Maine. It's this little small town up in Maine, and they have a historical society, and the historical society has monthly meetings. And what the great thing is, they have Zoom attendance. And so I went to one a few months ago, and it was fun. And there was like, two other people on Zoom, and they were probably both from ELIOT as opposed to me, who was not from ELIOT, never even been to ELIOT. But anyway, so they do their monthly Zoom meeting, and they sent out an email a couple weeks ago that said, oh, our monthly meeting is coming up, and it's, it's on this date at this time. Here's the Zoom link, and there's a show and tell. And I was like, oh yes. So you could bring something to show, some bit of ELIOT history to show and talk about it. And there was, I think, two other people on the Zoom meeting this time. And I think they were both board members for the Historical Society. And then there was me. And, even though they don't know who I am, I waited my turn and I got to talk. It was a 2-hour-long meeting. And the first hour was their annual business meeting where they went over like the finances and the events of the year and like, voting for new board members. And so I was like, boop-a-doo. So during the ELIOT Historical Society December meeting, I cast out a new project because, why not? So I'll tell you more about the meeting here in just a minute. But first, you can see how I was entertaining myself with while I was doing that. So I got this yarn. This is Noro. What is this? It is a 50% cotton, 30% silk, 10% viscose, and 10% polyamide, and it is 200 grams. Yeah, it's hefty. So I have that, and this is, when I go on trips, I'll buy a souvenir ball of yarn, and I usually buy one, and then I get it home, I'm like, what in the world am I going to do with this? Sometimes I'll splurge and buy two, but this one, I bought one, and it's enough for a sweater, so I cast on another sweater. I am doing the Hampton shirt because I live in the South. Maura, hey! Florida is next week. Yeah, so I'm going to Florida next week, but I'm here this week. So I cast on this. I live in the South, and so it gets hot here, and I'd like to be able to wear hand knits year round. But I live in North Carolina, and it's like 1,000 degrees here in the summertime and sticky. So I decided to start investing in more cotton yarn, and I thought I'd give this a try. So I got this yarn, and I'm working on, I think that's the backside, doing the Hampton shirt for women. And let me show that to you. Oh, look, there it is. That's convenient. So there's two different options. One has sleeves, one does not have sleeves. I think that I kind of think that this one the one with the sleeves, is knit using like successively different sizes of needles, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because she tells you what size of needles to use. But then you don't use, for some reason, this one, you don't use as many needles. Instead of 4 sizes of needles, you only use 2 sizes of needles. So I don't understand why, but the whole body, she has you knitting on one size of needles, and then this like arm neckband thing and the waistband, she has you knitting on smaller, like these are smaller needles and the band is smaller needles, but like all of this is bigger needles. Anyway, I forged ahead without reading that, as I do, and so mine is going to be slightly different. So my from like here up is going to be the bigger needles, and from here down is going to be the smaller needles, and I think that'll work just fine because that's kind of how I'm shaped. Yeah, if you're shaped differently, you can, you know, adjust your needle sizes as you will. So anyway, I'm working on this for like a good hour during the Historical Society meeting, and I was so nervous. I almost cried, you guys. I was so nervous because like they don't know who I am. I'm just like this random outside person that shows up at their little country historical society meeting, and I was probably the youngest person there by like easy 20 years, maybe more. Probably some of those people were 40 years older than me. It was awesome. But anyway, I got to talk about Virginia and mention a bunch of the people in the book, and they recognized the names. They recognized Douglas Armston. No, yeah, probably Douglas Armston and Maynard Douglas, the mailman, and Mrs. Obrey, the teacher. Apparently, Mrs. Obrey, Virginia's daughter's English teacher, she has a whole wing of the school named after her. And like, she's a big deal in town. And so the fact that I knew those names and, you know, the places in their town, they were really surprised, really surprised. And so they, when I was done, you guys, they clapped, which is shocking. I couldn't really hear it because the audio wasn't great, but I saw these old people clapping, that just tickled me. And so they asked me to come speak again at some point. I mean, virtually probably, but, I'm so excited because there's so much rich ELIOT history in Virginia's book that they had no idea about. They had absolutely no idea about, and so they were very excited. They do a lot of educational things with the library and ELIOT history for the school children, and I was thinking it would be fun to get some knitting classes going there for the school children. I don't know if I think I've mentioned her before. There was a woman named Pat Ashforth and her husband Steve Plummer. They did modular knitting. I think Pat passed in the last couple of years. Woolly Thoughts. Yeah, here it is. woollythoughts.com. And so they're math teachers in the UK, and they use knitting as a math teaching method for their students, and they do a lot with garter stitch and illusion knitting and like two-sided knitting. It's tremendous fun. But they were math teachers, and so they've already come up with like all kinds of different ways to bring this. Here it is, group projects. Does this click on anything? There we go. Yeah, group projects, and how you can do things in schools. So anyway, I thought it would be really special to take Virginia's technique, and which has got a lot of similarities to the Woolly Thoughts technique, because it's math based, it's garter stitch, and based on the grid system, and kind of combine those and bring that to the school children of ELIOT, so that they could learn, like in one shot, they could learn, knitting and like hand-eye coordination and local history and math, like all kind of together. And just, that would be really special. So I don't know how I'm going to pull that off, seeing as I don't live in ELIOT. I don't know. But anyway, that's on my list of fun things to do that I don't have enough time for. Let's see. Stephanie asked if I got to show some of the number knitting projects that I have done. I wish I had thought of that. Oh my gosh. No. I might have been wearing a number knit sweater. Probably wasn't. I just showed the book. And I could have even shared my screen and like showed that I digitized the book. Forgot to do that. I was trembling. I was almost in tears. I was so excited and so scared and so nervous. I didn't show them anything. Oh well. Next time. Because I'm sure I'll be talking with them again. Gee whiz, Kelly. Whew. Oh, I forgot it downstairs. Did I? I did. So I had shown you guys the linen blouse that I had, linen as in like that's the name of the pattern. That mine was made of wool. I made one in, it was a hand-dyed yarn from DJ of Discovery of Stitches, and it was sort of like avocado colored. And I knitted over the summer, and this is the one that was like, it was falling off of me. Like this one is sort of on the verge of doing. That one was like way more so. This one, for some reason, it's like, it wants to stay on a bit better than the avocado green one that I made. But this is what I made. And I just had it like held together with stitch markers in the shoulders. But I have finally, maybe because it's like the Christmas season and I'm in the mood to finish things, I finally actually like, I sewed up the side seams and I finished it. I finally finished it for real, not just with stitch markers, but I like secured it and all that. Yeah, so that's exciting. What else do we have? Yeah, that's kind of what I had for you all today. I have some other things I've been working on. So I was doing some more research on Virginia because in one of those, like somewhere in one of my collection of like hundreds of screenshots from different things where Virginia was published in, like the anthologies and like Who's Who in American Poetry, like all these different little snippets about her, I keep finding new things, like new works that she's published, new places that she's listed. That's where I found her pen name. I found there's another musical that she made called Dance of the Snowflakes. And she wrote the words for it, and she wrote it, the woman who composed the music was like world-renowned pianist, and she was amazing. I think from like the 1910s up until like the 1940s, she like traveled the world as a pianist, and she was amazing. And she worked with Virginia on this one project called Dance of the Snowflakes. It's it's like a song for three women's parts. I don't remember the musical terminology, but it sounds impressive. I have not yet been able to track down a copy of it. I have a feeling this is just like one of many, many more pieces that I'm gonna find like that she did, because so far we've got 3 children's operettas, and now I found Dance of the Snowflakes. I'm absolutely sure there's more. I haven't found them yet. But I will. One of the other articles that I found where it talks about like her education, it was at a school called I think it was the Peabody Institute in Baltimore or Philadelphia, I'm not sure, but it's a music school. And I actually reached out to them and I asked them for like any information about Virginia, and they didn't have much. Apparently, when it's not the kind of thing that like you could go there and get a degree. I think it was more of just like a course of, or maybe she didn't get a degree, but she was there for a while studying music at the Peabody School. And she was obviously very musical because she was very heavily involved in musical theater and operas and operettas and all that, but she always was on the lyrical end of things, not on the writing of the music. But she did work with some pretty phenomenal composers. So I would be really curious as to like what her level of musicality was. Like she owned a piano. We know that from one of the short stories that her first husband Lawton wrote, where he talked about her treasured piano that she won in a contest and how ugly it was. but I don't have any record of her, like I haven't been able to find any information about her actually playing. But I mean, maybe she did. I would think so, based on how musical, like how much she was into the musical world. But maybe not like at the professional level, but I'm still researching that sort of thing. Yeah, but I keep finding more, and it's amazing. And I've always got more things in the works. I recently found an article by a retired professor in, I think he's in North Dakota, maybe Minnesota, but he was a student of Virginia's son, Rufus. And so he wrote articles all about Rufus, and he's still alive. So I'm going to be contacting him and finding out more about Rufus and Rufus's house in Castine, Maine on Water Street, which incidentally was Virginia's house in Castine, Maine on Water Street. So I have always got little things that I'm working on to try to find out more about this amazing woman, Virginia. So I'm going to have so much more of you next year, I promise. So regarding the road trip, I was supposed to go to Maine this summer, but we were also going to Rhinebeck at the time, and like work was busy, and so the whole, like it didn't work out to do it. But we're actually planning to go to Maine, I think next August, which should be gorgeous. And I'm going to go into ELIOT. I'm going to go to ELIOT, and I'm going to go to Blue Hill Falls, and I'm going to go to Castine. And hopefully I'll be able to talk to some folks there and maybe write off the mileage, if nothing else. But I really am curious to, drive those roads and see those towns and like, see the scenery and the Bellamy River. Did I ever tell you that Virginia lived just like right near the Bellamy River? Oh, yeah, when she was in ELIOT, like there was the Piscataqua River, and then right like over a berm or something, there was the Bellamy River. And I thought it was related to her. It's not, but I thought that was really interesting that she lived very near the Bellamy River when she was in ELIOT. So I have a lot of questions for the folks in ELIOT about the people that are mentioned in the book, but also details about the places that she mentions, not just the people, but the places also. So I'm really looking forward to the Maine trip. And what would be really cool is if I could go teach number reading classes at the same places that she did. So we have pictures of her in her front yard at the Lanier exhibition hall. But basically it was a barn right next to her house. That used to be a campground. So they did classes there, and she taught classes at the Brick Store Museum a couple towns over. And she did a fashion show at the high school. So to be able to recreate all that stuff, but for modern day ELIOT people, that would be really epic in my spare time. Anyway, did you guys have any other questions for me before we sign off? It's a little after 7. I have thought, Stephanie, about doing interviews and recording them. That is a good idea. Yeah, because when I talked to this guy and this retired professor, I think I'd probably want to just chat with him first, and then maybe have another chat where we record it. Because that might be a little weird if I'm just like, hey, I'm Kelly, I'd like to ask you some questions. By the way, can I record it? It's like, I've never done that before. So I'd want to test the waters first. But yeah, I would like to record some stories. And I think that the folks at the ELIOT Historical Society, it was Castine, where Virginia spent her last 20 years, they have a really good historical society too. And they had a number of years ago done some recorded interviews with some folks. And I listened to some of them, the city managers. So I think I've listened to 2 or 3 of those. And one of the women that they interviewed, she was a friend of Virginia's. And I have records of a real estate transaction between them. So, but I think she passed in the 80s. And so the interview was done, it was in the 80s and a tape recorder. And it was very crackly. It was almost impossible to listen to because it was the audio quality was so bad. But I think it is important, while these folks are alive, that, have any recollection of this at all, or knew any of the people mentioned in the book, that like we should record what they have to say so we can save it, because otherwise, it's going to be gone. So I'm gonna try to be a bit like more gently proactive, if that's a thing, to try and record some of the information that I find. If you have any tips about how to ask someone if it's okay to record them, do tell. I could use some advice. So I don't know. I'm just making all this up as I go. Oh dear. All right, friends. I think that's about it for me right now. I gotta go. So I have a voice. My voice is hoarse, but I thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure, and we will kick it off again in January. And I appreciate you all so much for being a part of this project with me. And Merry Christmas. Bye, guys.